All right, hey everybody, welcome back to Real Estate Bites. This is episode number 116. Last week, I talked to you guys about um, how basically accountability, about owning the entire process, owning the deal, owning the relationship, being self-critical to make sure that you can improve upon the whole sales practice, right? This week, I got another sales tip for you. And it is basically shut up, stop talking. Okay. So, nothing. Okay. One of the things that drives me bananas, a pet peeve that I have, is when I'm talking to someone about a sales career and they say something to me along the lines of, I think I'd be really good at sales because I have the gift of gab, or I think I'd be really good at sales because I'm a good bullshitter. Man, those things get under my skin. When I hear people say that, it gets so deep under my skin. And the reason why, especially when they tell me, when they brag about what a good bullshitter they is, to me, someone who's a bullshitter, that, I don't know, that there's a connotation of deception with that word that bothers me even more so than someone who just says they're good at talking a lot. But the whole thing about that is, and why it bothers me, is I think the ability to just talk at people is not a prerequisite for being a good salesperson. Not at all. As a matter of fact, it's a good prerequisite for self-sabotage in a sales career. It's pretty much the opposite. You got to be good at listening, right? And so when I'm teaching people, it's really about the ability to ask good questions, ask the right questions. Here's the reality. When you meet somebody, you meet a new lead, you meet a new prospect, and you're trying to get to know them, or, you're trying to find common ground, right? Connection points between you and them. Talking at them is a terrible strategy. First and foremost, they don't care. Right? They don't care about your story. They don't care about your problems. They don't care about your family or your kids. They don't care. They don't care about you. Why? Because they're not hiring you to be their instant buddy. They're hiring you. They're taking you on to help them solve a problem, whatever that might be. And of course, in our world here in real estate, it's to either sell or purchase their next home. And they don't want to hear about what you did, or the parents at basketball practice, or your last trip. They certainly don't want to hear about your vacation and the money you spent, right? Before you've ever even provided them any value. What they want you to do is just that. They want you to provide value, okay? And so when you're meeting that prospect or that lead, and you're starting to develop this relationship, shut up. Don't talk about you. The only time when you open your mouth, the only thing that should come out are questions, qualifying questions, personal questions, not too deep at first, but questions where you're trying to discover their goals, their motivations, their fears, their desires, right? And then you're trying to ask them, when I say personal questions, it's about their work, their hobbies, the things that make them laugh, the things that make them cry. You're trying to learn more about them. What are their interests? That's when you discover your connection points. It's not about, I'm going to talk at them until we find something in common. It's about, I'm going to ask them questions, get them talking about themselves, right? Until I find something that I can connect with. And then we're going to meet on top of that bridge. Asking questions and listening, right, is so important, right? So Stephen Covey said this in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. Don't make that mistake. Don't fall into that trap. Don't listen just waiting for that one thing that, oh, well, I can say this, or I can one up that. Listen to understand. Okay, listen to understand who they are and what they're about. Try to uncover, discover, and fully understand their psychology. Because when you do that, then you have the ability to really deliver on expectations. Then you have the ability to really put together the solutions that are unique to their specific problem. Then you have the ability to, when you're looking at, okay, we're talking about real estate sales, when you're looking at properties, say, that you're trying to present to them as solutions to their home search, if they're telling you about their hobbies and you see space within the house or the outside that can accommodate those hobbies, that makes it easier to translate this solution to them and their problems. Sometimes it works like this. They'll give you a set of criteria and you go out and you're looking at those things and they're, nah, I don't like this, I don't like that, and it's not making sense. Or maybe you see a property that doesn't necessarily fit that criteria, but it fits the lifestyle that they're describing to you as you interview them, getting to know them as a person and as a human. Then you can take that property and say, well, what about this? Nah, we don't care for, but hold on, you do this and you do that and you do this, and this fits all those things you're describing. Let's go take a look. I've sold many houses like that, right? That it wasn't in their criteria. They did not think it would work out. But when I translated how that property fits their lifestyle, then they end up writing an offer because they find out it fits. Even more so than selling them a house is when they're looking to buy a house that doesn't fit their lifestyle. And as a professional, I'm listening to them and I'm like, this is not who these people are. They're about some sort of, they're having this vision of what they're going to become when they buy this house, but this isn't who they are. And then I can describe the lifestyle that they've told me about, how it doesn't fit with that property. And then that gives them the opportunity to move on and refocus on something that's going to be better for them. That has happened way more often than me selling a property to somebody that they didn't like, but it fit their lifestyle. More often than not, I'm able to talk them out of a decision that might have been a bad one because the property they're looking at didn't quite fit. So the whole thing is, don't talk at people. Ask them questions. Here's something for you. When do you think it's a good time to start talking to them about you? What is the number one indication that they're interested in your story? I'll give you a second to think about it. You got it. They're going to ask you, right? That's when you know they care enough about you that you can start talking to them about you and your life and what you got going on. And they're going to start caring. The amount that they care is going to be commensurate to the amount of value that you brought them, the amount of time that you've spent with them, showing them properties, showing them solutions, listening to their wants, their needs, their desires. And I don't care, I'm talking about real estate specifically, but this applies to any consultative sales position you may have in any industry. You got to get to sales is about people. It's not about the products. It's not about the properties. It's not about the processes. It's about the people that you're working with, right? You need to qualify that person and then craft the solution from the marketplace to fit what they need. Okay. Here's another little tip before we move into this last week's sales statistics. When you're talking to people, when you are asking them questions and getting to know them, you're asking about their life, their work, their hobbies, all these kinds of things. Make a mental note. If you're like me and memory is not one of your strong points, you make a mental note, and as soon as you get in your car, you pull out that notebook and you jot down stuff, right? You jot down stuff. You get back to the office, you enter those personal details into the CRM. That way, next time you see them, or maybe it's 4 months down the line after the sale is closed and you're doing a follow-up call and you pull one of those items that you jotted down and you ask them about it, you just prove to them that you care about them as a human being. It's not just about the transaction and the payday. You care about them as a human being. You're interested in their story, in their situation, and that relationship can continue on. And it's so effective, guys. Listen, even if you told them, and I've done this, even if you tell them, yeah, when you talked about that, I actually wrote it down so I could remember for future reference, it's not going to make them feel any less happy about the fact that you cared enough to note that and write it down and communicate that back to and inquire about their story, right? That's professionalism, right? When you first meet the lead, shut up. Don't talk to them. I've met customers. I'm working a client right now who went to an open house, was interested in the open house. There was a agent working that open, and she went to this open house unrepresented. There was an agent working that open house who had an opportunity to win her business that day, and I never would have got to meet this person. She did not give the agent an indication she was interested in buying that house, because instead of the agent asking about whether or not this person was interested in the house at all, the agent talked about her kids, talked about the money she was spending, talked about everything except this person's interest in this property. And it turned that person off, and they left, and they eventually called me. They don't listen, your clients, unless you, even if they're family, listen, even if you're working with close friends and family, you need to start with an interview, right? Don't talk at them. Don't tell them what they should do or shouldn't do. Ask them what it is they want to do and want to accomplish. And then when you present data to them or they're presenting to you, it's a matter of asking them, how does this data or how does this course of action fit the goal that you're trying to get to? And let them come up with a solution, right? Work with them in that way, and you're going to build trust that's going to eventually build advocacy with that person. They're going to send you referral business for as long as you're doing whatever you're doing. All right, great. Let's get into last week's sales statistics. Okay, let me get into sharing my screen here. All right, here we go. Episode 116. This morning, there were 519 single-family homes and condos on the market in Lorain County. There were 79 closings last week, 79 houses that sold last week. The median square foot value of those sales were 1,753 square feet. The median sale price was $253,000. Median square foot value, $166.36. That is an $8 and some cents improvement over the week prior, but still not as high as things that we had been seeing in weeks previous. So talked about this last week. I'm very curious as this quarter wraps up here in a couple weeks, where the average median square foot value wraps up for Q4 2025 versus what we had been seeing in the past. We saw steady square foot values grow and grow over the past couple years. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing, I believe that we're going to see some bit of a correction over this 175.54 that we saw at the end of quarter three. All right. Days on market, our median has continued to grow. We are, bouncing around 3 weeks on average to, it's the past few weeks. We've been over a month here. It's slowed down this winter. 6.26% was the interest rate on a 30-year conventional note when I checked this morning. And then the big sale of the week was $810,000 in Avon. Let's go and take a look at this house here on Pendleton Court in Avon. We got a 5-bed, 4-bath. That's 3.5 bath. 3,500 square foot home sold for $810,000 in Avon. Man, oh man, I just get such a hard time when I try to look at the photos. Of course, that might be the reason why this is the only photo available of it. So that's what you're getting, $3,500 built in 2023. That's the wrong one. What am I doing here? This is the right one, 810. All right, here we go. Here's some pics. $810,000 again. 3,500 square feet above. Another, I think I wanted to say it was like 900 square feet finished below. This is virtual staging, guys. Big, beautiful kitchen. Huge space left for a fridge. Built-in oven there. Nice, beautiful stone fireplace. Love coffered ceilings. Love trade ceilings. It's a pain in the butt to paint those things and refinish, but boy, when they're newly finished, they look absolutely beautiful. Love that texture. There's the finished part of your basement. Look at your office. And then here we are with the pictures without the virtual staging. Nice big beautiful home in Avon, California closet in the master. Big beautiful bath. This is what $810,000 will get you right now for relatively new construction in the city of Avon. Very good. All right, moving on. So listen, next week we're going to talk about something entirely different. We're going to get into rent controls. The recent election of Mayor Mamdani there in New York City got me interested in, one of the things he talks about, is rent controls, basically socialized grocery shopping, things like this. So rent control is something that touches in real estate. It's an interesting topic and how it works or doesn't work. And I've been doing some research about rent controls in the Midwest. Not a whole lot. Almost all of it is on the coasts. And wanted to talk to you guys about rent controls. So if you like this stuff and you like the topics that we talk about here on Real Estate Bites, click this QR code, snap that QR code. It will take you to my YouTube channel for other great topics. Share the YouTube channel with friends and family. We coming at you most Fridays here to talk about real estate. And as always, take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. I love you, people. I'll see you next week.